Part 2. A normal child would have abandoned the task long since. The average adult would probably have been reduced to slapping the keyboard. But not Artemis. This book was testing him, and he would not allow it to win. The letters were right. He was certain of it. It was just the order that was wrong. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, Artemis glared at the pages again. Each segment was bordered by a solid line. This could represent paragraphs or chapters, but they were not meant to be read in the usual left to right, top to bottom fashion. So Artemis experimented. He tried the Arabic right to left and the Chinese columns. Nothing worked. Then he noticed that each page had one thing in common, a central section. The other pictograms were arranged around this pivotal area. So a central starting point perhaps, but where to go from there? Artemis scanned the pages from some other common factor. After several minutes, he found it. There was on each page a tiny spearhead in the corner of one section. Could this be an arrow? A direction? Go this way? So the theory would be to start in the middle and then follow the arrow, reading in spirals. The computer program wasn't built to handle something like this, so Artemis had to improvise. So he took a craft knife and a ruler and he dissected the first page of the book and then reassembled it in the traditional Western languages order, left to right, parallel rows. Then he rescanned the page and fed it through the modified Egyptian translator. Okay, so all these characters and symbols have been in a spiral. He's cut them all out and he's put them into rows, and you can have a look and you can see there, that's what the fairy language looks like. The computer hummed and whirred, converting all the information to binary several times, which is a computer language. It's made up of just ones and zeros. Several times it stopped to ask for confirmation of a character or symbol. This happened less and less as the machine learned the new language. Eventually 2 words flashed on the screen. File converted. Fingers shaking from exhaustion and excitement, Artemis clicked print. A single page scrolled from the laser writer. It was in English now. Yes, there were mistakes. Some fine-tuning needed, but it was perfectly legible, which means it could be read, and more importantly, perfectly understandable. Fully aware that he was probably the first human in several thousand years to decode the magical words, Artemis switched on his desk light and began to read. It said, "The Book of the People, being instructions to our magics and life rules. Carry me always, carry me well. I am thy teacher of herb and spell. I am thy link to power arcane. Forget me, and thy magic shall wane. 10 times 10 commandments there be. They will answer every mystery. Cures, curses, alchemy, these secrets shall be thine through me. But, fairy, remember this above all. I am not for those in mud that crawl, and forever doomed shall be the one who betrays my secrets one by one." There's that word again, arcane. So when he was surfing the internet, Artemis, it said, was interested in arcane information. And now we've got that word again. So this is very specialized, very special kind of information. Hard to find, hard to understand. Artemis could hear the blood pumping in his ears. He had them. They would be as ants beneath his feet. Their every secret would be laid bare by technology. Suddenly the exhaustion claimed him, and he sank back in his chair. There was so much yet to complete, 43 pages to be translated for a start. He pressed the intercom button that linked him to speakers all over the house. "Butler, get Juliet and come up here. There are some jigsaws I need you to assemble." Perhaps a little family history would be useful at this point. The Fowles were, indeed, legendary criminals. For generations they had skirmished on the wrong side of the law, hoarding enough funds to become legitimate. Of course, once they were legitimate, they found it not to their liking and returned almost immediately to crime. Legitimate meaning leading a lawful life. But it appears that the Fowles much prefer to be criminals. It was Artemis I, our subject's father, Artemis's father, who had thrown the family fortune into jeopardy, meaning putting it in risk, nearly losing it. With the breakup of communist Russia, Artemis Sr. decided to invest a huge chunk of the foul fortune in establishing new shipping lines to the vast continent. New consumers, he reasoned, would need new consumer goods. The Russian mafia, which means the Russian criminals, would need new consumer goods. The Russian mafia did not take too kindly to a Westerner muscling in on their market, and so decided to send a little message. Their message took the form of a stolen missile launched at the Foul Star on her way past Murmansk, the Foul Star being a ship. Artemis Sr. was on board the ship, along with Butler's uncle and 250,000 cans of cola. It was quite an explosion. The Fowles were not left destitute, meaning they didn't lose everything. Far from it. But billionaire status was no longer theirs. Artemis II vowed to remedy this. He would restore the family fortune, and he would do it in his own unique fashion. Once the book was translated, Artemis could begin planning in earnest. He already knew what the ultimate goal was. Now he could figure out how to achieve it. Gold, of course, was the objective. The acquisition of gold. It seemed that the people were almost as fond of the precious metal as humans. Each fairy had its own cache, his own kind of collection of gold, hoard. But not for much longer, if Artemis had his way. There would be at least one of the fairy folk wandering around with empty pockets by the time he'd finished. After 18 solid hours of sleep and a light continental breakfast, Artemis climbed to the study that he had inherited from his father. It was a traditional enough room, dark oak and floor-to-ceiling shelving, but Artemis had jammed it with the latest computer technology. A series of networked Apple Macs whirred from various corners of the room. One was running CNN's website through a DAT projector, throwing oversized current affairs images against the back wall. CNN is a news channel in America. So he's got a news channel constantly on, projected onto one wall. Butler was there already, firing up the hard drives. Shut them all down, except the book. I need quiet for this. The manservant started. The CNN site had been running for almost a year. Artemis was convinced that news of his father's rescue would come from there. Shutting it down meant that he was finally letting go. All of them? Artemis glanced at the back wall for a moment. Yes, he said finally. All of them. Butler took the liberty of patting his employer gently on the shoulder, just once, before returning to work. Artemis cracked his knuckles. Time to do what he did best. Plot dastardly acts. Okay. It's interesting. I can't remember the last time I read a book where the main protagonist is a villain. Normally, one reads books where the main protagonist is a sort of heroic figure or heroine. But this it's interesting reading a book where it's somebody who's up to no good. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know. Some of you have given me a little bit of feedback already on yesterday's. But I'd be interested to know, are you able to understand enough of it? I know that there's going to be, as I mentioned yesterday, I know there's going to be some vocabulary, some language that you don't understand, but it's not necessarily a problem if you don't understand every single word. You just have to understand enough, and I will, as I said, I'll try and explain words which I think you might need a definition for. Anyway, let me know how are you enjoying it. It's a big change, isn't it, from Pippi Longstocking and Winnie the Pooh. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.